Alright guys, I want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas, and instead of watching the typical Christmas movie like Home Alone or A Christmas Story, well actually I did watch A Christmas Story, but it's kind of hard to miss that one when they play it on TBS all day. I decided to watch Santa's Sleigh from 2005, starring Bill Goldberg as an evil Santa Claus. Now, he's supposed to be this demon who lost a bet to an angel, so he's forced to be good for 1,000 years, but now the bet's over, and he can go back to killing people or whatever it is he wants to do. So it's not a bad premise here, but it is a horror comedy, so the movie's poking fun at itself the entire time. There's a lot of bad jokes, but there's actually some pretty funny jokes too. So I would actually have to say I recommend this movie because there are some funny jokes. It's Bill Goldberg, for God's sake, and it's only an hour and 15 minutes. So it is a unique movie. I can say that. But it starts off with Chris Kattan, Fran Drescher, some other people you would recognize, and they're eating dinner on Christmas Eve. And Goldberg, Santa Claus, busts through the chimney, and Fran Drescher says, "Santa?" And he says, "Yes, Virginia, Santa Claus is real." Or Santa Claus does exist, or something like that. And for some reason, they made him look like Genghis Khan. But he kicks this little dog into the ceiling fan. He attacks this one guy and stabs his hands to the table, which causes another girl to faint and fall back onto a spike, which just happened to be sitting behind her. And he sets Fran Drescher on fire, drowns her in eggnog. Chris Kattan tries to fight him with some bullshit. I don't know what he was trying to do. And Goldberg just kicks him into a china cabinet, which kills him. I mean, he didn't stab him. He didn't try to rip his head off or anything. He just kicked him into a china cabinet, and he's out. He bashes one girl's head in with a table leg. He takes the star off of the Christmas tree and throws it into another girl's back, which kills her. And then he goes back to the guy who's stuck to the table and shoves a turkey leg down his throat. So that's how the movie starts off. And I actually thought it was pretty cool. I mean, yeah, some of the deaths are cheesy, but the movie's supposed to be that way. And I thought it was a lot of action and a great way to build him up as this villain. So, and then we get the intro, which is these weird pictures telling the story. If you didn't know the story going into the movie, this isn't going to explain anything. I mean, it doesn't tell you anything about the angel or how Santa is the son of the devil or anything like that. And then we see Hell Township on Christmas Eve. This is the town Santa Claus goes to. And this old lady goes into a deli, and she's being a total biatch to everyone in this place. She leaves the deli, and Santa is behind her in his sleigh, and he's trying to get by her, and she tells him to suck it. He blows his little horn thing, and she doesn't think it's weird that there's a man in a sleigh being driven by this giant buffalo hell beast. So Santa Claus has his hell deer is what he calls it, which is actually pretty cool. He has the hell deer ram her car and sends it flying. Back at the deli, we see Nicholas and Mac, the two main characters, and they get presents from their boss. Mac gives Nicholas a ride home. He gets to his house and the lights are out, so he goes to the basement and we're introduced to his crazy grandpa. His grandpa's built an entire bunker in the basement. And he hates Christmas because of Santa. He's telling him about how Santa Claus isn't this nice guy they portray him as. And then they walk up the stairs and he farts in his face. It was really lame. But he's telling him about Santa Claus, and Nicholas wants to know the truth about Christmas. So he brings out this giant book. And Nicholas says, "What is that, a Necronomicon?" Necronomicon. And it's the Book of Claus, which tells the story about how Santa's the son of the devil. He's about to tell him about the angel, but Max shows up, and she gives Nicholas a Christmas present. And Max actually played by this girl, I can't remember her name, but she's in the remake of The Hills Have Eyes, which I thought was interesting because I'm going to do that movie soon. We see a thief who tries to rob Santa Claus, thinking he's a bell ringer. He stabs him in the eye with a candy cane and throws him into a dumpster. And then we see this preacher, played by Dave Thomas, who goes into a strip club. This entire scene, this whole strip club part here was just insane. So he goes into the strip club, and then Santa Claus pulls up with his sleigh, the Hell Beast reindeer, and he hands his keys to the valet. Do strip clubs even have valets? And even if they do, on Christmas Eve, wouldn't you just give this guy the night off? Like they really need a valet on Christmas Eve. But Santa Claus says, "I'm here to stuff some stockings." And the bouncer tries to stop him from going in, which I don't understand because it is a public place. So Santa Claus kills him with a wreath, and he goes into the strip club, and he says, "Ho, ho, hoes." And he kisses one of the strippers. This causes the bouncers to attack him. He kills a bunch of people. He actually disinfects a stripper pole and then uses it as a weapon. And he pulls out what I think is a piece of coal and blows on it. He looks at the strippers and says, "Naughty." And then he throws this piece of coal and sets the whole place on fire. So he leaves, and we see that the Hell Beast, or the Hell Deer, has eaten the valet. Coughs up his hat. Nicholas gets offended when Max says his grandpa's a little off, so she leaves, and he goes back to reading the book, and it tells the story through stop motion, like the old Christmas specials. And this angel took the form of a man and challenged Santa to see who could slide a rock over the ice and get closest to a hole without it falling in. And if Santa won, he gets to send the old man to hell. But if the old man won, then he has to stop the day of slayings and do good for 1,000 years. So of course the old man wins, and Nicholas realizes it's been exactly 1,000 years since this happened, and the bet's off now. So he goes online to the GoNad Santa tracker, and there's a chat box. And he says, "Is this real?" And someone says, "How old are you?" And he says, 16. And the person says, "No, and neither is Santa Claus. I'm sorry if you and your parents haven't had this conversation." That was actually pretty funny. So Nicholas thinks, "Oh man, this whole thing is crazy." He decides to go to bed. On Christmas Day, we see these bratty kids opening their presents. Or actually, these two bratty kids say, "Can we open our motherfucking presents now?" And this old lady, I guess their grandma, says. And they open their presents and they explode, blowing their heads off. And then the old lady says, "Fuck." That was good too. So Santa goes back to the deli where Nicholas works, and he stabs his boss through the neck with a menorah. And he sees a picture of Nicholas and his grandpa, and he leaves the deli. He walks past these rabbis. And then we see Nicholas stop at a gas station where Debo, of all people, works. Zeus. And he asks if they have any gum, and they're out. This gas station is out of gum. Really hard to believe that, but Debo says that the driver who was making the deliveries died at the strip club, and the only gum he has is this smoking gum. It's nicotine gum or something. So Nicholas hears a report on this police scanner about vandalism at the deli he works at. So even though all he has is a bike, he still makes it to the deli before the police. And he sees his boss dying, and he tells him that there is a Santa Claus. And then the cops show up. They said that the rabbis told him it was a guy in a Santa suit, and the cops say they're taking Nicholas downtown and to bring those Amish people too. So at the police station, he tells the captain the truth about Santa and says it should all be over at 7 o'clock, which is when it's midnight at the North Pole. Of course, the captain doesn't believe him. He says he's crazy like his grandpa and tells him to leave. So the police are tracking these Santa killings, and it makes the form of a Christmas tree. And Mac picks Nicholas up from the police station, and then Santa shows up at the police station. He starts killing the cops. He kills the captain with a stun gun to the balls. And Mac is driving this truck, and Mac and Nicholas get pulled over by a cop. But of course it's really just Santa Claus driving, and he jumps in the back of her truck. Nicholas shoots him with a shotgun. He goes flying. I don't understand why he went to the trouble of stealing a cop car when his sleigh is much faster. And it's not like they don't know he's coming after him. So they run to Grandpa's bunker, and Santa shows up. He kills some carolers outside, and they take this tunnel to the garage where they have some snowmobiles. And Mac can't get hers started, so Santa shows up and runs Grandpa over with his hell deer. Nicholas and Mac take off on the snowmobiles, and Santa Claus is flying over them in the air, dropping these presents, these bombs, like he's the Green Goblin or something, and he's just chasing them, throwing these bombs. So they run to the high school. Santa shows up here. He's chasing them. He's spitting fireballs now, making a lot of bad puns too. But they eventually make it to this hockey rink, and he comes after him with a Zamboni. And Nicholas tries to blind him with a flashlight, and he says, "I'm Santa Claus, not fucking Dracula." So bad. So cheesy. Grandpa shows up, and we find out that, well, he's an angel again, or a ghost or something. And we find out he's the angel that beat Santa and forced him to turn good. Who didn't see that coming? And he traded his immortality to be with a human woman. So Santa was able to find him because of this letter Nicholas sent him as a kid asking for an easy bake oven. I'm not really sure how that would have worked when he gets... And he said he gets millions of letters, so... But they decide to play again. And if Santa wins, old man goes to hell. But if the old man wins, or his grandpa, then Santa Claus has to stop the Day of Slayings forever. But instead of playing fair, he grabs Grandpa and he throws him into this hellhole he built, and the scoreboard says 666. So he comes back after Nicholas and Mac, and he shoots another fireball, and Nicholas is able to block it with this nutcracker that shoots chestnuts his grandpa built, and he stuns Santa Claus. He tells him that it's over. The Day of Slayings is over. It's 7 o'clock now, and Santa says it ends when I say it ends. They run over. They try to save Grandpa. Santa Claus takes off on the Zamboni. Grandpa says he's bluffing. He's powerless. We got to go after him. But for some reason, Grandpa's not allowed to go with him. I guess he's only allowed to go to certain areas as an angel. So he has to leave. And Nicholas and Mac take off on the snowmobile. They run into some hunters, and they tell him that they know where a bird deer is. So they show him the bird deer, and it's Santa Claus flying in his sleigh, and they start shooting at it, and then Mac's dad is there and shoots him with a bazooka, blowing him up. And they look at the body, and instead of it being Santa Claus, it's the preacher dressed in a Santa outfit. So he's the one who's getting blamed for the Santa Claus killings. And Nicholas tells Mac that he knows Santa Claus is still out there, but there's no need to tell them and have them live in fear, and he's going to try to stop him himself, and then they make out. And we see Santa Claus dressed as a biker taking a flight to the North Pole. And after the credits, Santa Claus is looking at his list, and he looks at the camera and says, "Who's next?" I'm really surprised they put that in there. I mean, a lot of times when you have someone who's a wrestler, like The Rock, who goes off to do some movies, they don't really try to play up the fact that they're wrestlers. They're trying to be a different character here. But they used Goldberg, and they had him say "Who's next?" at the end of the movie. So that was kind of surprising to me. But yeah, that was Santa's Sleigh. A really strange movie, Christmas-themed horror comedy, but it's unique, and I have to say I did enjoy some of this. It helps that it's only an hour and 15 minutes. If it was a longer movie, it would have been tougher to sit through. But the fact that it was a shorter movie, and they did have some good jokes here, I think it's worth watching. Probably not going to watch it again, but at least for a first time viewing, it's pretty good. So yeah, that's my review of Santa's Sleigh. Hope you guys liked this video. Leave your thoughts on this movie in the comments, and thanks for watching. Bye. Alright guys, I want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas, and instead of watching the typical Christmas movie like Home Alone or A Christmas Story, well actually I did watch A Christmas Story, but it's kind of hard to miss that one when they play it on TBS all day. I decided to watch Santa's Sleigh from 2005, starring Bill Goldberg as an evil Santa Claus, like Genghis Khan. But he kicks this little dog into the ceiling fan, he attacks this one guy and stabs his hands to the table, which causes another girl to faint and fall back onto a spike, which just happened to be sitting behind her. And he sets Fran Drescher on fire, drowns her in eggnog. Chris Kattan tries to fight him with some bullshit, I don't know what he was sure. Some other people you would recognize, and they're eating dinner on Christmas Eve. And Goldberg, Santa Claus, busts through the chimney, and Fran Drescher says, "Santa?" And he says, "Yes, Virginia, Santa Claus is real." Or Santa Claus does exist, or something like that. And for some reason they made him look like... Now, he's supposed to be this demon who lost a bet to an angel, so he's forced to be good for 1,000 years. But now the bet's over, and he can go back to killing people or whatever it is he wants to do. So it's not a bad premise here, but it is a horror comedy, so the movie's poking fun at itself the entire time. There's a lot of bad jokes, but there's actually some pretty funny jokes too. So I would actually have to say I recommend this movie because there are some funny jokes. It's Bill Goldberg, for God's sake, and it's only an hour and 15 minutes. So it is a unique movie. I can say that. But it starts off with Chris Kattan, Fran Drescher,